a time for responsible leadership, not crass partisanship. The situation requires additional tools not held by other federal, provincial, or territorial law. It's what responsible leadership requires. These measures must be and will be compliant with the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We will always defend the rights of Canadians to peaceful assembly and to freedom of expression.
I don't think he means that. Joining me now is Daniel Davidson. He's a senior editor with the great Federalist. I don't think he means responsible leadership, John. I kind of feel like he means something else.
Yeah, I think you're right. Everything that Trudeau has done since this started has sort of been inviting an escalation between law enforcement and these protesters. Every single thing Trudeau has said, every single thing he's done, including the things he hasn't done, which is sort of like, talk to the protesters, meet with them, say a single conciliatory word that he understands their frustrations. Now, he's escalated this every step of the way, and I think he wants a confrontation.
He is. And actually, you have a great piece up at the Federalist I would encourage people to go read about the fact that it seems like he wants violence. And I totally agree with you. It seems like he does. But, John, I need you to help me to understand why. I mean, this is the digital age. If Canadian troops or cops, whatever they are, if they go marching in there, start cracking heads, God forbid, shoot somebody or something like that, it's going to be on Instagram in 15 seconds. This is not something that's going to make Trudeau look good if it goes bad, so why try to make it go bad?
Well, you have to think about it from Trudeau's perspective. This, I think, is his opportunity. He sees this as his opportunity, and the left-wing elites that he aligns himself with, that he really represents in Canada, as their kind of January 6th moment. He needs these protesters to be seen as domestic terrorists because they represent, as he himself said, unacceptable views. So you can't tolerate these unacceptable views in Canada, in Trudeau's Canada. And so he needs domestic political opponents, people who disagree with him ideologically, people who disagree with him about policy, to be painted in the worst possible light. He needs them to be terrorists. And what do you do with terrorists? Well, you certainly don't negotiate with them. You crack down on them. You respond in force. I think he thinks it looks strong, and he's playing to his base here, and maybe it works for them. But a growing number of Canadians are really off-put by this and think that he's making the situation much worse.
John, can you help me understand where he thinks this goes? I mean, because I guess this is my problem. It seems like it would be so easy to get rid of the truckers and all would be forgotten. Just drop the dumb mandate. I mean, people forget that's really the only demand that truckers have is the mandate. It would not be difficult for Trudeau to stand up and say, hey, look, they're clogging up the works. We're going to get rid of the mandate. He could even say something dumb like, I would encourage companies to mandate it, and just walk away, and it wouldn't be a big loss. Why not just do the easy thing?
Well, going back to what I just said, because then he doesn't have his January 6th moment. Then he validates the views of people who he thinks are disgusting. These are working class people who have conservative social views, probably, but it's also just a mix. This is like a populist thing. It's not even a left or right thing. These are just normal people who have struggled throughout this pandemic. Most of them have done everything that the government has asked them to do. Some 90% or something like that of Canadian truckers are vaccinated. They've complied with all these draconian mandates. But he can't be seen to compromise with these people because they embody everything that he and his class of elites hate. And so you can't, yes, there's plenty of things that a real leader could do to provide off ramps for this situation, to wind it down, to walk away, even to claim victory. He could claim victory and be like, oh, we showed these people. The provincial governors, the provincial governments are already rescinding these mandates. Case numbers and hospitalization rates in Canada are plummeting. There's absolutely no reason for this stuff to be around anymore. So this is now not really about COVID. This is about what kind of society Trudeau thinks Canada is, and what his place is in it, and what these truckers' place are in it.
John, you mentioned the word elites, and it's used a lot, and it's used appropriately, as you just did. And there's this thing out there now, like if you read history books, as I know you do, and you read about old American presidents, old American politicians, they did feel part of the country. They felt like they were part of the country. They felt some sort of kinship with the people in the country. And it doesn't seem like that's the case at all anymore. These people genuinely seem to think that they're kings and queens, and they're just up here, and we are down here. When did that happen? How did that happen? Because it's not a Canadian thing. It's very much American, too. It's Western.
It's a globalist thing, right? And it's happened over the past few decades. Justin Trudeau is sort of a walking embodiment of like Davos man, you know, this global elite who has no allegiance to his own people, who has really no particular place that he thinks is more important than another place. And he looks down on people these little people who are tied to a place, who are tied to a nation, who are tied to a particular maybe way of life or culture. So all this talk among leftists about multiculturalism and diversity, they don't really want real diversity, because real diversity means that, you know, you have to learn to live with people maybe that you don't like so much, and people who live in ways that you think maybe is disgusting, which certainly in this case is what Trudeau thinks of the protesters. But he's this Davos man. He thinks that people in Canada that he governs, that him and his fellow elites govern, should just do as they're told. You know, you heard the Deputy Prime Minister, when they invoked the Emergencies Act earlier this week, she said something very telling. She said, these truckers need to get back to work and stop making us all poorer. Get back to being an economic unit and do as you're told. Because that's how they see their countrymen. They don't really see them as countrymen. They see them as subjects to be managed by them. And that's how they see the world.
Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.